Before you scroll away, let me ask you something, have you ever felt invisible? Like the whole world keeps spinning, but you're stuck standing still, too afraid to speak, too afraid to be noticed. That was Amelia's life, until a moment of pain sent her to the and straight into the path of a man who would change everything. A man she didn't even know was watching her life from behind the mask of a doctor, and the fortune of a millionaire heart. Amelia Quinn had always been the kind of girl people barely noticed in a crowded room. Shy, soft-spoken, always wearing sweaters one size too big, as if to apologize for existing. At 23, she worked at a quiet bookshop downtown, tucked between a laundromat and a forgotten diner, spending her days alphabetizing dusty novels and memorizing the plots of forgotten romances. Her world was small, quiet, and safe. But sometimes life has a way of shoving you out of your comfort zone when you least expect it. It was a cold Tuesday evening when it happened. The ache had started days before, low in her abdomen, dull but persistent. She'd ignored it, like she did with most things. Pain, attention, the feeling of being lonely. But by that night, she was curled up in bed, sweating and trembling, clutching her stomach in agony. She didn't want to call anyone. She didn't want to be seen, not like this. But she knew, something was wrong. Barely able to walk, she grabbed her coat, covered her face with a scarf, and took the bus to the nearest emergency room. Every bump in the road made her wince. Every stop felt like it might be the one where she collapsed. And when she finally stepped inside the blinding white lights of the her voice was so small the receptionist had to lean in to hear her. I think something's wrong, she whispered. Down there. Even saying that much felt like a public confession. Her cheeks burned as she filled out the forms, trying to disappear into the chair, shrinking away from the world around her. Meanwhile, behind the doors, drive. Lucas Hart was finishing a brutal double shift. 35 years old, tall, lean, with sharp blue eyes that saw right through people, but not in a cold way. Lucas was a brilliant trauma physician, known for his calm under pressure and his ability to connect with even the most anxious patients. What few knew was that he also came from old money, very old. His family owned hospitals, research labs, even medical tech companies. But Lucas didn't care for boardrooms or luxury cars. His heart was in the field, where real people needed help. He wasn't expecting her, not that night. The chart landed in his hands like any other. Quinn, Amelia, female, 23, reports severe lower abdominal pain, possible infection or cystic rupture. Shy demeanor. Very quiet. He raised an eyebrow. It wasn't the symptoms that caught his attention. It was the note about her demeanor. He'd seen hundreds of confident, outspoken patients. But something about shy stopped him. He flipped the folder closed and walked toward room 12. When he stepped in, he saw her. Hunched over, knees pulled to her chest on the exam table, her eyes wide and terrified like a deer caught in headlights. Her long brown hair was messy, sticking to her damp forehead. She looked up at him, and something shifted in his chest. She was beautiful, not in a flashy, Instagram-perfect way, but in the soft, fragile way that made you want to protect her. Hi, Amelia, he said gently. I'm Hart, but you can call me Lucas, if that makes you more comfortable. She barely nodded. I'm here to help you. Nothing you say will embarrass me. You're safe here, okay. He could see her hands shaking as she clutched the edge of the sheet. It took a full minute before she spoke. It hurts. I'm sorry. I don't want to be a bother. Lucas knelt slightly, bringing himself to her eye level. You're not a bother. You're a human being in pain. That's why I'm here. The exam was delicate, and though she flinched and turned red with every question, Lucas never once made her feel ashamed. His voice was warm, reassuring, patient. He explained everything step by step, never moving too fast, never using cold medical terms without softening them with kindness. You might have a ruptured ovarian cyst, he said softly after the scan. It's painful, but not uncommon. The good news, with rest, fluids, and some medication, you'll be okay. Amelia let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Tears formed in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered, embarrassed by her own emotion. I was so scared. Lucas handed her a tissue, but didn't rush her. You did the right thing by coming in. And you were very brave. She looked up at him again. And for the first time, she smiled. Something about that smile, it stayed with him long after she left. He told himself it was nothing. Just a patient, just a moment, but that night, as he sat in his penthouse apartment overlooking the city skyline, sipping tea instead of whiskey, he thought about her. The way she clutched her coat like a shield. The way her voice trembled but never gave out. The quiet courage behind her eyes. The next day, he looked up her file, purely to check on her recovery, he told himself. She was resting at home. No complications. He closed the file. He should have stopped thinking about her. But he didn't. Meanwhile, Amelia was trying to forget. She couldn't believe she had said those things out loud. She had let a man, a doctor, look at her like that. Touch her like that. Not inappropriately, no, but still, the shame swirled around her. And yet, there was something about him. The way he made her feel seen. Safe. She wanted to bury the memory. But she couldn't. Back at the hospital, Lucas found himself doing something he rarely did, walking past room 12, glancing in, remembering her face. He didn't know why. It was against protocol to pursue anything with a patient. But still, he wondered. A week later, fate intervened again. Lucas was invited to a charity book drive for underprivileged kids. One of his family's foundations was sponsoring it. He didn't usually go to these events, but something compelled him. And when he arrived at the small, sunlit bookshop hosting the event, his heart skipped a beat. There she was, behind the counter. Amelia, dressed in a soft blue cardigan, glasses sliding down her nose, sorting books into neat piles. She hadn't seen him yet. She was humming quietly, her lips forming the lyrics of a song only she could hear. Lucas walked toward her, his pulse unexplainably fast. Amelia, she froze, looked up, recognition dawned slowly, her eyes widened. D-Drive, heart, he smiled. Just Lucas today, I didn't know you worked here. I didn't know you, read books. He chuckled. Touché. There was a pause, a long one, and then, unexpectedly, she laughed. Softly, nervously, but it was real. He picked up a book from the table. A romance novel. Is this your recommendation? She bit her lip. It's one of my favorites. He opened it, read a few lines, smiled. You know, I was hoping I'd run into you again. Her heart jumped. Why? Because something about you stayed with me. And not just because you were my patient. You reminded me that quiet strength is still strength. That shyness isn't weakness, and that sometimes, the most extraordinary people hide in the most ordinary corners. Amelia didn't know what to say. Her cheeks were on fire. I'm not extraordinary, she whispered. You are to me. That's when it all began to shift. He started visiting the bookshop more often. Always buying something, always asking for her recommendations. Slowly, she opened up. Told him about her love for old poetry. Her dreams of writing one day. Her fear of not being enough. He listened, and more than that, he saw her. Not the shy girl with the trembling voice, but the woman with a soul that burned quietly, like a candle in the dark. She didn't know he was rich. He never flaunted it, never wore his wealth like a badge. To her, he was just Lucas. The doctor who made her laugh. The man who respected her space. The one who looked at her like she was the only person in the room. But the world doesn't let love bloom quietly for long. What happens when secrets come to light? When the truth about who he really is, and what he's hiding, emerges? Before we dive into the rest of the story, ask yourself, what would you do if the person who made you feel safe was also hiding the one thing that could destroy your trust? This is where Amelia's journey takes a turn. A twist she never saw coming. Keep watching till the end, because what happens next might just restore your faith in love and humanity. The weeks that followed were something out of a dream. Lucas became a regular at the bookshop, not just browsing anymore, but staying to talk. Some days, he brought her coffee. Other days, he'd just sit nearby, reading the books she recommended, giving her space but never letting her feel alone. For the first time in her life, Amelia began to open, not just to someone, but to life itself. She smiled more, laughed more. She began walking home with her head held higher. Not because Lucas had rescued her, but because he had seen her. One Friday afternoon, as golden light spilled through the shop windows, he said the words she never expected to hear. Amelia, would you like to have dinner with me tonight? Her breath caught. Dinner. He smiled. With me. No white coat, no fluorescent lights, just two people, talking, maybe laughing. She hesitated. The old voice in her head whispered, he'll see the real you. He'll walk away. But something stronger rose up. A new voice. Yes, she said softly. I'd like that. That evening, she stood in front of her tiny mirror, hands trembling. She wore a simple green dress, nothing extravagant, but it made her feel, not beautiful exactly, but visible. When Lucas picked her up, he didn't say a word at first. Just looked at her like she was the moon in a night sky. "You look perfect," he whispered. The restaurant was quiet and warm, filled with bookshelves and soft jazz. He chose it because he knew she'd feel safe there. Over pasta and wine, they talked for hours. About childhood fears, about dreams left behind, about how he never quite fit into his family's world of power and wealth. Wait, wealth, it slipped out subtly, like a thread from an unraveling sweater. Amelia blinked. "What do you mean, your family's world of wealth?" He hesitated. That moment, the one he'd dreaded, had come. "My family owns several hospital networks, and a medical foundation. I was born into it. But I've always wanted to be a doctor, not a businessman." She stared at him. "So you're rich?" He laughed gently. "Technically, yes, but that's not who I am. Not really." She looked down at her plate. Her heart beat faster, not in the good way. In the "I don't belong here" way. In the "he's out of my league" way. "You should have told me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want that to define things. I didn't want you to feel small. Because you're not. You're more than you know, Amelia." But the words, though kind, didn't stop the storm brewing inside her. The next few days, she avoided him. When he came to the shop, she was on break. When he texted, she replied late, or not at all. Her old fears whispered louder now. "He'll leave. They always do. You're just a quiet girl from nowhere. What do you have to offer a millionaire doctor?" Lucas, on the other hand, was falling harder with each passing day. He couldn't stop thinking about her kindness, her quiet wisdom, the way she listened like the world wasn't rushing past her. He wasn't used to this kind of love. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't easy, but it was real, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. One rainy evening, he waited outside the bookshop. No flowers, no fancy car, just an umbrella, and a heart wide open. When she walked out and saw him, she froze. "I didn't mean to ambush you," he said. "But I had to say this." She stood still, eyes unsure. "I get it," he said. "I'm from a different world. And I should have told you earlier. But the truth is, money has nothing to do with why I keep coming back." "Then why?" she asked, voice cracking. He stepped closer, the rain dripping off his coat. "Because you're the most honest person I've ever met. Because when I'm with you, I feel grounded. Because your silence speaks louder than any noise in my life. And because you don't care about the name on my wallet, you care about the man behind it. And I need that, Amelia. I need you." Tears welled in her eyes. "But I'm just me. I'm quiet, I get scared, I freeze up, I overthink everything. And yet," he whispered, "you walked into an ER alone, in pain. You faced your fear, you talked to me. That's not weakness, Amelia. That's strength." She looked away. "I don't know if I can live in your world." He reached for her hand, gently. "Then let's build a new one, together. One that fits both of us." From that moment, everything changed. They didn't rush into anything. Lucas was patient, Amelia was cautious, but their bond deepened like roots growing under the soil, quietly, steadily. He took her on walks through gardens instead of parties. They watched old movies. He read her poetry. She started writing again. But the biggest surprise came not from Lucas, but from her. One afternoon, while helping him organize a medical donation for a free clinic, she had an idea. "Why don't we create a little library corner for the waiting room? For the kids who are scared?" Lucas beamed. "That's brilliant." It started with one shelf. Then two. Then she wrote small notes in each book for the children to find. Words like, "You are brave. You matter. The world needs you." The project grew. So did her confidence. Lucas offered to fund a full children's reading room in her name. But she said no. "Let's name it after the quiet ones," she said. "The ones no one sees. Because they need to be reminded, they matter too." Months passed. The world kept spinning. But in their little corner of it, something rare had taken root. Love, not built on wealth or appearances. But on trust, on healing, on a bond born from pain, but nurtured in grace. One evening, as they sat watching the stars from her tiny balcony, Lucas turned to her. "You know," he said, "the night I first met you, I thought I was just treating a patient. But really, you treated something in me I didn't even know was broken." She smiled. leaning her head on his shoulder. I think we healed each other. Dash dash dash. And there it is, Amelia's story. A shy girl who thought she was invisible, until love found her not despite her quietness, but because of it. And Lucas, a man who had everything, but only found meaning when he saw the world through her gentle eyes. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that kindness still matters, and if you know someone who hides their light out of fear, share this video with them. Because maybe, just maybe, what the world needs right now is a little more love from the ones we never notice.